Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another Poetry Thursday. It's the best day of the week, isn't it? I love Poetry Thursday. I hope that you do too. And I hope that you are going to make a Poetry Thursday video because I want to see and hear more poetry being read, being discussed if you choose. Although that's certainly not mandatory, just reading it is more than enough. Because poetry is meant to be heard. It is not just for the eyes and for the mind, but for the ears and for the tongue. And it is a pure delight when it's done well. The poem, that is, not the recitation. So don't feel like that's any pressure to stop you from doing it. And I hope that you will join me in reading and enjoying more poetry. In fact, Aaron Facer and I are going to be doing a poetry of the month kind of book club where we're going to be reading a poetry collection each month and talking about it on our channels and inviting you to join us. Our first one is on its way. It is the first collection of poems written by Ted Hughes, and so I'm looking forward to that showing up soon. And once it does, I will do a video to read a poem out of that, whether it shows up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Whenever it arrives, I will make a video and read the first poem out of that, regardless of what it is and how it is, as a way of introduction for the poetry collection for the month. I'll have down in the description down below the title of it because the name of it eludes me at the moment. But today I have for you a return to the Romantics. Yes, of course I had to return to the Romantics because I've been reading through Life on Mars by Tracy K. Smith, and while I'm not disliking the poetry in there, none of it is really resonating and speaking uh, to me in a way that I want, and nor is any of it calling out as something that I'd like to read to you. I'm into part 4 of 4, and I've got just a handful of poems left to read. And ultimately, what started with a bang with that sci-fi poem that I shared last week has turned out to be less sci-fi and a lot more just other stuff. And that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not the collection that I was hoping it would be. And yeah, and that's okay. I'm still glad I'm reading it and will be glad for having read it. It is not a collection I think I'm going to have to pick up for myself to keep and revisit. Um, and that's okay too. I'm fine with uh, the poetry style and the writing of the author, the poet. But it's a little disappointing. So we have to go to William Wordsworth instead to get us through this Poetry Thursday, and this is a delightful one. I popped open my major English romantic poets book because this is the first time I've cracked it open. Decided, you know what, I'm gonna pick a poem out of here to read, and started flipping through and got to Wordsworth and came across a poem called uh, Expostulation and Reply. I thought this was a really fun one, and I think you'll enjoy it too. Why, William, on that old grey stone, thus for the length of half a day, why, William, sit you thus alone, and dream your time away? Where are your books, that light bequeathed to beings else forlorn and blind? Up, up, and drink the spirit breathed from dead men to their kind. You look round on your mother earth, as if she for no purpose bore you, as if you were her firstborn birth, and none had lived before you. One morning thus by Esthwaite lake, when life was sweet, I knew not why, to me my good friend Matthew spake, and thus I made reply. The eye it cannot choose but see, we cannot bid the ear be still, our bodies feel where'er they be, against or with our will. Nor less I deem that there are powers which of themselves our minds impress, that we can feed this mind of ours in a wise passiveness. Think you, mid all this mighty sum of things forever speaking, that nothing of itself will come, but we must still be seeking? Then ask not wherefore, here alone, conversing as I may, I sit upon this old grey stone, and dream my time away. And that is a nice short poem, and I really enjoy the narrative feel of it. The His friend Matthew comes and asks him, why on earth are you just sitting here and doing nothing, wasting your time away as if you're the first person to be here, and just not being active? Where are your books? Up and drink the spirit breathed from dead men to their kind. So basically saying, where's your books? Well, you should be reading what these people who came before you, the dead men, these great people, what they have written down. You should be doing something. You should be enmeshed in some sort of an activity. Why are you wasting things away? And I think we can all relate to that, to the feeling of the need to always be doing something, to be progressing forward, to be busy with things. And I love William Wordsworth's reply here. The eye cannot choose but see. We cannot bid the ear be still. Our bodies feel where'er they be, against or with our will. I mean, you're gonna see things and hear things and feel things regardless of what you're doing. You can't just shut that off. And so even by sitting here, by being still, by choosing to sit upon the stone and not be busy, I'm still experiencing things. I'm still doing something in the passive process of just existing and enjoying and reveling in what is around me. It is just wonderful. The impression that he's giving to the reader, that you don't have to be seeking things. You don't always have to be doing and trying to accomplish, or to be studying, or to be immersing yourself in things in order to find fulfillment, to find joy, to find purpose and meaning. And so he sits upon the old gray stone and dream my time away. I mean, he's still doing something, he's still enjoying. And that is a poem that is so, it encapsulates a lot of what the Romantics did as a movement for poetry, in which they said that, the folks that came before, the great poets, you've got Milton, and you've got Spenser and Chaucer and Shakespeare and all of these that came before them, and Pope, and the idea was that your poetry had to be meaningful, it had to be weighty, it had to be almost for the educated person, that you had to be able to read between the lines to understand it and to appreciate the poetry. And their movement was largely in reaction to that idea. And so they experimented both in the way they crafted poems, um, their willingness at times to break from traditional conventions of writing in rhyme and meter and all of that, although they still do plenty of poetry that follows those. But they made a lot of poetry that focused on experiences and emotions in nature, rather than just on these higher experience things, higher experience. And it's magnificent. And Wordsworth perfectly captures that here. His friend Matthew is saying, what are you doing? You should be doing these things. You should be experiencing. You should be immersed in the dead and what the works that came before, or producing something new. You should be busy. Get to it. What are you doing out here just sitting around on a rock? And we can all relate to that. And that's what's so beautiful about it, is that it is for everyone. And that was what they wanted with their poetry, was to make it accessible to everyone. So to those of you that have always felt that poetry was never really for you because you can't analyze rhyme, meter, and all of those other poetic techniques, that you can't break it down, that you can't read a poem about a snake in the grass and see anything in it other than the snake in the grass that it literally is talking about. That's okay. There's no wrong way to enjoy poetry. Other people will tell you differently, maybe, and they can be wrong. They're welcome to be wrong. Poetry can be read and enjoyed by everyone. And that is the revolutionary movement that I want to sweep across BookTube. That's why I'm so passionate about reading and sharing this poetry, because it is for all of us. Whether you just pull out a poem and read it because it sounds wonderful and it delights you, or you read it because it just happens to be what's on your shelf and you just randomly picked one, or if you read it because you want to talk about it and you can break it down and discuss it with all of us. It doesn't matter. All of those are great and valid and beautiful expressions of poetry. And old, new, it's all great. And I hope to see you sharing some poetry for a Poetry Thursday in the very, very near future. So thank you for sticking around through the preamble, through the post ramble. And hopefully you enjoyed that poem as much as I did, because it brought a smile to my face tonight when I read it. And I was just like, yes, this is the poem. This is the one. I've been finding all night to try to find the right poem to read for Poetry Thursday. And I should have known to just turn to my man William Wordsworth, and he would come through for me. So thank you for watching.